One. Good afternoon and welcome to the latest edition of the A-Team Bad Guys documentary, where we look back on the iconic A-Team series, which span over 5 seasons throughout the 1980s. And this week's episode, we go to season 2, we go to episode 20. The episode was called Harder Than It Looks. It's aired all in cable TV all across the United States and Canada on February the 21st. 1984, and just the backstory about the episode. It was really a sort of a Stockholm syndrome type episode where a young girl was taken hostage but fell in love with one of her kidnappers, and the A-Team had to go and rescue one of the kidnappers as well, not only her. So they had to do two sort of rescue missions in the one episode, and it featured a good lot of bad guys in this episode. They were the GLA terrorist group, and one of those characters was iconic in terms of his what did I say, a long enduring fight scene with Mr. T.B.A. Baracus. We're talking about the one and only Vince McKewin. Vince, welcome. 1984. God, how are the memories? Does someone say to you A-Team now? Would you even struggle to remember where you were on that show?
Well, yeah, I don't remember. I remember some very specific things. I wasn't even sure of the plot until you mentioned it again. And I'm not even sure if I actually saw the episode. I don't know if I did or not. But yeah, it was a long time ago. But this was at a time in my career where I was getting a lot of bad guy parts. My acting career was broken down into two things. It was either Freeze, where I was a cop holding a gun on someone, and that's when my hair was short, or Freeze, when I had longer hair and was playing bad guys. And I pretty much went playing a cop Mirandized most of the Screen Actors Guild at one time or another. You know, you have the right to remain silent. You have the right to an attorney. I think I did that line 20 times on different shows. But on this particular one, yeah, the high point was, I guess, my fight with Mr. T, who didn't want any new friends.
Okay.
You know, didn't have a lot to say to me, although we spent probably 2 or 3 hours on that fight. I was doubled at one point, and as I recall, he was never doubled. He had to jump on me from behind, I remember, and he jumped off a bench. It was supposed to be up high on a wall, but he jumped off a bench, and I think he was covered later by a double for that jump off the wall. One of the sidebars of that episode was I was in charge of a lot of extras. We all wore black, I think. We all had M16s. And so we had to charge up the hill. I think we were chasing George Peppard up this hill over and over. And it was his double. But finally, George came down, and he was very nice. He was very nice to the extras. He was nice to me. And so we had a break, and we all sat down. We were in a park somewhere, and we sat down under a tree, and George leaned back against the tree. And I was sitting pretty close to him, and he reached in his pocket and he took out a pill, and he popped it in his mouth. He said, "Now, that'll be a much more interesting afternoon." Okay, I have no idea what that was. So while we're sitting there, I noticed that the M16s were real M16s. They had plugs in the end, but they were the real deal. And I had been in the Army during the Vietnam War. I did not go to Vietnam, but we had to take that gun apart and put it back together 500 times at least, because it was the lowest common denominator. Some people in basic training never learned how to put it back together. They could take it apart, but most of, but you ended up having to do it blindfolded, etc. So out of boredom, we're sitting there, and there's a guy sitting next to me. And I said, I can take this gun apart and put it back together in under 3 minutes.
Yeah.
And all these guys were younger than me. They didn't put it together that I might have been in the military at one point. So people are throwing money down betting me. And I did it in like 2.5. They got a blanket, and I took it apart and put it back together in like 2.5 minutes. I think I made about $50. Okay, even
Wow.
betting. But when I looked up, George Papard was clapping for me. So that was kind of the highlight of that day on the 18th. The other thing was it was directed by Ivan Dixon, who I don't know if you know, but he was an actor first. He was the only black guy on Hogan's Heroes. Do you remember that show?
Okay.
Hogan?
Yeah. Yes, Hogan's Heroes. Yes, I've actually seen one or two episodes of it. I actually trying to remember who. It's sort of sketchy. It's very sketchy. I remember Hogan and one of the two, so, but I'm trying to remember him. It's just barely visible in my head.
He was the only black guy on there. He's a big guy, and I kind of thought in his direction. Now you have to understand, at this point, I'd probably done, I don't know, 15 to 20 episodic shows. So it wasn't like I was really experienced, but I had been around sets enough at this point that I had an opinion of directors. And he kind of seemed like he was phoning it in. Very nice guy. But then I realized the A-Team was run by the stunt coordinators. That's who shot the A-Team, because there was so much goddamn action. There would be some, obviously dialogue. I have dialogue like, let's go, or something. But mainly it was running up the hill and shooting and fighting. So Ivan kind of sort of laid back on those 2 or 3 days that I worked. I think it was 3, and let the stunt coordinator kind of run things, because that's what was going on. I remember him being very kind and giving me no direction at all, just letting me say my few lines. But the A-Team guys seemed to really like him. So obviously it wasn't his first time. And he seemed to be kind of pals with him. And so that's always a good sign. And the crew seemed to really like him. But I didn't see him do a lot of directing. My other memory of it is that, there was so much lead thrown in the A-Team, and nobody ever got killed. Nobody ever died. But they threw a lot of lead around. Okay. Well, there was a guy whose whole job was to stand on a step ladder. I don't know why he would do it on a step ladder, and he had this gun, and it had a compressed cylinder, and it was filled with clay pellets. Okay. So we would come running up the hill, and I had blanks, and the other guy who had a few lines had blanks. I don't think the extras did. I think they put their shots in post, and we would fire. And then this guy would, when they reversed the camera, this guy would get up on this ladder, and he would shoot these clay pellets, close to the doubles for the A-Team as they were running. And it was it was really cool, because even before they did anything with it in post, it looked real, because those pellets were, and it was semi-automatic. The guy, he could fire as many as fast as he could pull the trigger, but that was his whole job. That's what he did all day. I'm sure there wasn't another television show in history where you had a clay pellet rifleman, full time with his ladder and his gun. So that's a few of my memories.
And I suppose, Vince, in terms of, had you worked in previous Stephen Cannell's productions? Were you known to Stephen? Were you sourced out for him for that particular role in the A-Team?
Yeah, I did. I did almost all the Cannell shows at one time, but I think they were mostly later than this episode. I know I did something before. Simon Eyre was the casting guy for Cannell shows, and Simon kept bringing me in. And ultimately, I did The Fall Guy. I did Hardcastle McCormick. I did, what were some of his other ones? I can't remember all of them, but I did about 4 or 5 Cannell shows, and mostly as bad guys, because I think that's how they saw me when they first brought me in.
And I suppose, Vince, in terms of your physique and your sort of character at that sort of time, so most of the thing that struck me talking to people was to say that actually Mr. T is actually a very small in terms of his height. He looks very broad, but when you see him,
Right.
He's not tall. He's not tall. So were you a good few feet taller than him in terms of at the time, and did the camera angles have to make you look at the same sort of size?
Well, that's an interesting question because I did a TJ Hooker once with, um, what's his name? Star Trek. Oh, heck. Where I was told actually to slump when I had a 2-shot with him because I was taller than he was.
Okay.
Captain Kirk, you know.
Oh,
Anyway, yeah. So, but with Mr. T, I didn't see him for, I don't think I saw him the first day at all. And then when I did see him, I was really surprised that he wasn't as big, he wasn't as tall, certainly, and he was pretty broad. And he had all that stuff on him, you know, all that bling. And which I thought, how, you know, that's got to like make your neck hurt after a while, unless it was, you know, plastic or something, but it didn't look like it. But yeah, he was, that was a surprise now that you bring it up, because I felt like I was looking down on him. But what happened is that we were on a slight hill. So when he jumps on me, he was taller than me standing on this hill when we were fighting at first. Okay. So maybe that was done on purpose, but you know, he just, you know, he just did his Mr. T thing, and he certainly knew his way around the stunts and a stunts coordinator, and he certainly knew how to throw a punch believably and things like that. I've been with some actors that I got hit once by a star of a show when we were just walking through it. The guy just hauled off and smacked me in the jaw. So you never know, but you know, he was athletic, and he was quicker than I thought he would be. And except for shaking my hand, I don't remember us having any conversation at all. You know? Whereas Papard seemed to be cool. Face was cool. That's right. He was cool. He actually came down and we were at the bottom of the hill running up or getting ready to run up again, and he came by and we were all sitting on the ground, and he came by and he said, "Okay, the lecture today is," or something, and he was just easygoing and didn't ignore people like the extras. You know, when you see that happen, it happens all the time. The extras are it's just such a horrible world, or at least it was then. You're just fodder, and literally and figuratively, and people generally ignored him. And I remember he didn't, and neither did Papard for that matter, because he sat with us under that tree for, you know, an hour. Yeah. Kind of dozed off and wait. You know, I wanted to ask him about Breakfast at Tiffany's and Audrey Hepburn. And I wanted, you know, but there was really no opportunity. So,
and I suppose, Vince, there's another scene with yourself and Mr. T when when himself and Hannibal are running out with this bomb. And you sort of meet, you see that you're wearing the mask, and you take off the mask, and BA sees you again, and you're sort of smiling at him coming, and then he sort of shows you that he's the bomb, and you start to run out of the building. All we can hear is just saying, you're sort of pegging it out of the building, followed by George Papard and Mr. T. And we see that you're on top of this hydroelectric sort of dam at the stage. And what was that sort of take like that? Because it looked like you were gearing up for another fight, and it was almost like you sort of wanted to like bring it on, and Mr. T saw you, and it was just like BA saw you, and like, not again. The bomb was almost like the excuse for you to sort of part ways.
I think that scene was directed by the stunt coordinator, and it was after Mr. T had beaten me up, as I recall.
Yeah, it was towards the end of the episode when the GLA were conducting their plan, their mass sort of plan.
Yeah, I had totally forgotten that till you brought it up. And I think the impetus there was, I don't want any more of that. You know, that was sort of the impetus of that. That was my action, if you will, to get the hell out of there. I need to see the episode again. I wish I would have watched it before our interview, but
No problem.
so long ago.
Yeah. And Vince, in terms of the shooting of that location, I remember watching it back there today. There seemed to be a lighthouse there. There seemed
Yeah.
to be a hydroelectric dam. So were you sort of offset for that particular? Was most of it done on nearby the studio? Was that really an offset? That location, that hydroelectric dam, that lighthouse, was that all in the sort of one vicinity that she had rented out?
It was, and it was along the coast. I can't remember if it was Seal Beach. It was south of the main LA beaches, Santa Monica, Hermosa, those beaches. It was south of there, so it had to be probably like Seal Beach or south of Seal Beach. And I remember the lighthouse was a surprise. The hydroelectric dam was within sight of that, but I think they had to move there to do the. It wasn't all together. But it was it was pretty close, that's for sure. And it was this huge kind of park where we, I think we were outside just about for 90% of it. And
was there a cliff? Was there a cliff there as well? I remember seeing them sort of abseiling down this sort of rock front as well.
What
a sort of a cliff sort of thing where there were sort of abseiling. Yeah, they were abseiling down that as well in terms of one of the scenes as well. It struck me as a very scenic, a very beautiful sort of spot to be shooting an episode of the A-Team.
Well, have you ever been to the LA area or Southern California?
No, more central, I suppose, in terms of Los Angeles, but I haven't been down around that area. It just sort of just struck me in terms of the backdrop for that episode. It really sort of stood out.
It's pretty amazing when you talk to longtime location managers. What is here? It's just phenomenal because you've got the ocean and cliffs like that, and then an hour and a half inland you've got mountains, and in between that desert. So the locations are pretty phenomenal. There's a reason that LA has been the center for film and TV for years, and especially TV because, putting together 26, 24 shows with different locations or trying to make it look different is very hard. And in the A-Team, I think probably from you watching all of them, you'll see that they really do have a lot of different myriad kind of locations. They take advantage of that. And because they loved having a lot of extras as bad guys, or as they would get these expanses, these places where you could put, I don't know how many extras we had on this. I keep thinking it was around 15 who were dressed in black and were with me, but it could have even been more. But in order to have that level of action every single show, they really like to have as many extras as possible. And again, it's not like they killed anybody. they just wanted to have overwhelming odds for the guys, I think, more than anything. So.
And I suppose, Vince, I'll put you now the sort of toughest question. It's one of those questions that I sort of, as we were coming towards the end of the interview, I like to sort of round off with. And let's pretend your character, and we'll call him Vince for short. We won't say anything else, but just call him Vince. Put a name on him. Let's pretend your character Vince was put in the A-Team encyclopedia, and in terms of a synopsis, was sort of they wanted to write up a synopsis for him, and they left 2 blank sentences underneath his name, and they got in touch with your talent agent roughly, and he got in touch with you, and they asked Vince McKewin, having played Vince in season 2, episode 20 of the A-Team. What would you like that synopsis, the 2 lines to read, having portrayed the character? So, Vince, how would you describe Vince in 2 sentences?
Well, probably cocky and believing that I was going to succeed until I ran into Mr. T. And then I became a little scared girl.
And I suppose Vince McKewin now, for the last 30 seconds, I suppose the A Team has become is globally a global phenomenon all over the world. And I suppose, like you, like all the actors of the guest star, I suppose it's the same for you. You receive residuals even to this day from all over the world for your guest appearance in the A Team. So, if you to sum up that experience on your time on the set of the A Team in terms of your memories, good or bad, again in 30 seconds, what would you like to say?
Well, listen, when I was I ended up making my career as a writer, and but when I was an actor, there was nothing like going to work as an actor. All you had to do was show up, know your lines, don't bump into the furniture. They're going to dress you, they're going to give you props, they're going to tell you what to do, and this was a terrific experience. I got to play with guns and lead a group of men, so it was a terrific experience.
On that note, Vince McKewin, an absolute pleasure talking today. To relive your memories of your time on the A Team, you appeared on season 2, episode 20. You're one of those bad guys franchise of the A Team. So many established actors have played a role as a bad guy in the A Team, from the likes of Yaphet Kotto to the likes of so many renowned stars, to the likes of or just names. Robert Davi is another one that starts to spring to mind. So many renowned, talented actors. And we're delighted to have you as part of that franchise. Thanks for sharing your memories with us, Vince, today, and we wish you a prosperous 2021 once the global pandemic is over. Take care, mate.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Vince.